A few weeks ago, we covered 6 new Reggies that I wanted to personally see in future games. But what about the Reggies for the remaining types? Today, I want to shy away from offensively oriented Regi forms and instead make new Reggies that can fill any sort of supportive roles for your team in VGC. If you guys want to see me make more new Pokemon like this for any other future concepts, such as maybe Paradox Pokemon or Megas, make sure to leave a like in the video and subscribe for more, and maybe I'll do another part in the future. Also, let me know down below what your thoughts are on the new Reggies, and if you disagree with any of my ideas, then what you guys would end up doing for your own new Reggies instead. Finally, make sure to check out the artist who made all of the new designs for these Reggies, as Vincenzo Nova ended up doing a fantastic job. And I'm going to have all of their links to their socials down below, as it would be really appreciated, of course, if you could show them some love. With that said, let's start off with our very first Regi today, as we have 6 different options to cover for all of our missing Regi types. Now, because these are going to be more support-oriented Reggies, we're going to be looking a lot less at the offensive stats today, and instead focusing more on these defensive and speed stats. That doesn't mean that every Regi is going to have 50 in both of its offenses necessarily, but the goal isn't to necessarily be making these Pokemon into offensive powerhouses either. For typings today, we're going to be covering a Fire type Regi, Water, Grass, Dark, Ghost, and Poison. And starting off with our Fire type option, of course, we're going to be creating the newly introduced Regi Burn. Regi Burn is going to be a strong support-oriented Fire type, with the Flame Body and Drought abilities that are going to help it very much so. For its stats, we're going to be giving Regi Burn 50 HP, 100 attack and defense, 80 special attack, 200 special defense, and 50 speed. With strong options like Heat Wave and Flare Blitz for very good stab, as well as Stomping Tantrum to cover a lot of different offensive Pokemon. When we factor in its supportive moves like Will-O-Wisp and Synthesis, this really does help Regi Burn a lot, because thanks to Synthesis as well as the ability Drought, we're now going to actually heal 2/3 of our health instead of just half whenever the sun is active. And Will-O-Wisp is going to be very perfect for Regi Burn's stat line, because since the special defense stat is our stronger of the 2 defenses, Regi Burn will benefit a lot actually from burning opponents, since that will only make it slightly more bulky on the physical side than it actually is. Now, this essentially is just going to turn it into a much more optimized version of a Pokemon like Torkoal, which doesn't have the best offensive stats, and it's very physically defensively skewed, meaning that you can't actually partner with options like Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp to make it even more bulky against opponents. While it's not nearly as offensive as Torkoal is, at least in terms of being a really good Trick Room wall breaker, 50 base speed is still pretty respectable in this regard, and you definitely can make Regi Burn work offensively for sure, but compared to a lot of other Sun Sweepers, it's not going to be nearly hitting as hard, making it into a very powerful sun-setting Pokemon that can still deal respectable damage, but isn't necessarily going to be fighting for competition with a lot of the top fire types, especially considering Incineroar, which this has no common trait sans, thankfully. Now, even if you don't want to run Sun on your team necessarily, Flame Body is still great, as this can give you even more chance to burn enemies, making sure that Regi Burn will just never die, making this into a very powerful Pokemon that just has no competition with other key fire types. So if our first Regi is going to be Sun related, surely our Water type Regi should be Rain related. And with that in mind, let's talk about Regi Wave for a second. Because we're going to be focusing more on support oriented Regis, we're going to shy away from abilities like Storm Drain and Water Bubble that would both be very terrifying here, and instead be giving Regi Wave both Water Absorb and Drizzle. Now, Water Absorb especially helps Regi Wave with giving your team a really good water type immunity, and while it doesn't redirect options like Storm Drain would, it does at least keep Regi Wave deceptively healthy, which is going to be very good for switching it in when you have maybe a fire type or a ground type on the field ahead of time. I did almost consider hydration in this slot too, but I figured that at least Water Absorb has some sort of support for a team, whereas hydration really only benefits Regi Wave here. Though honestly, it doesn't really matter because you're most likely going to be running Drizzle anyway. And Drizzle is going to be huge here because it's finally going to be on a Pokemon that actually has really good stats, unlike Pokemon like Politoed and Pelipper that have pretty underwhelming BSTs overall. Now, Regi Wave is going to have a stat line of 50 HP, 80 attack, 200 defense, 100 special attack and special defense, and 50 speed, essentially making it a perfect mirror to Regi Burn. With offensive options like Scald and Muddy Water for really powerful stab, while having Thunder and Ice Beam for really good coverage to hit most Pokemon that resist water type moves, Regi Wave is going to be a pretty decent option. Unfortunately, there's no rain equivalent for moves like Synthesis that heal your health by 2/3 when the sun is up, so because of that, we're just going to give Regi Wave the move Recover outright. As while Regi Wave will never have the opportunity to heal its health by 2/3, it also at least is never going to have its health recovery limited because another weather is up on the field. Now, I think this should be pretty okay for Regi Wave anyway, as Water is such a good defensive typing that we don't really need to be giving it a move like Synthesis that would be healing it up even further in its benefiting weather. And I think this at least should help a lot because Water is arguably one of the best defensive types in the game. So at least this will help at least counterbalance a little bit, because typically Rain Setters end up being a little bit better than Sun Setters anyway in most formats. threats. Finishing off our starter types, let's talk about Regi Root, which is going to be our grass type Regi. Now, while the terrain center could have been pretty cool, I really didn't want to make this into a Pokemon that's just outright competing with Rillaboom or Tapu Bulu, so I wanted to instead give it a completely separate role and give it 2 abilities in the form of Natural Cure and Friend Guard. Now, these both are really good supportive abilities actually for Regi Root that don't necessarily make it compete with any other defining grass type, as Natural Cure is going to allow you to make sure that options like Sleep, Paralysis, and Freeze are never going to harm you in terms of getting up your supportive moves, while Friend Guard is going to be a great way to make sure that your ally Pokemon can just set up very easily without dying. Because most grass types are either going to be very offensive like Pokemon like Rillaboom and Ogerpon, or extremely defensive like options like Sinistcha and Amoonguss, I wanted to make sure that Regi Root is not going to have to compete with either category, and we're going to instead make it a very fast support Pokemon that's going to take advantage of Friend Guard to make sure it can really thrive by just existing. With this in mind, I gave Regi Root 50 HP in attack, 100 defense, 80 special attack, 100 special defense, and 200 speed, making it the fastest grass type to exist before any sort of stat booster items. For its moveset, I want to go with options like Rage Powder, Giga Drain, Strength Sap, Sleep Powder, and Leaf Storm, in order to make sure that Regi Root has the perfect grass type Pokemon support kit. Now, while you could argue that it's missing a very key move in Spore, I didn't really want to give this to Regi Root because on a Pokemon with 200 speed, this would be very overbearing. Though I won't act like I didn't think about giving it Spore at one point. Sleep Powder's accuracy can at least be patched with an item like Wide Lens, so you could still viably click Sleep Powder to put enemies to sleep, as well as use moves like Rage Powder to make this into a very fast support Pokemon, similar to how Ogerpon has followed me. But the speed is going to be a lot faster than Ogerpon at least, while giving up the ability to actually redirect grass types. So there is an actual give and take here, even when comparing it as a fast redirection grass type to one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. Speaking of, thanks to its base 200 speed, we actually don't need to invest many EVs into the speed stat for Regi Root, since it's just going to outpace most Pokemon in the game anyway, meaning that we can actually make this into a very deceptively bulky Pokemon by just taking these EVs we would have put into speed on most other threats, and instead just invest it very much so into its bulk, making Regi Root into a Pokemon that's just going to take a lot of hits without even trying to. Now with just 3 typings left, let's talk about our dark type Regi, Regi Dusk. Now Regi Dusk is going to be in a sense a fast Regi, but also not really, because its stats are going to be very pitifully slow. Now for abilities of choice, we're going to utilize Magic Bounce and Protect here, since Magic Bounce is going to be a great way to quickly send status moves like Will-O-Wisp and Toxic back to your opponent, while Prankster is going to give Regi Dusk a means of actually using status moves like Reflect, Light Screen, Parting Shot, and Taunt very quickly without needing to rely on its very low speed stat. Now with a stat line of 200 HP, 50 attack, 100 defense and special attack, 80 special defense, and 50 speed, this is going to be a truly very defensively oriented Regi, allowing you to still put up a very good fight against most opponents. And while we've already went over its supportive kit, there's still a lot of other dark type moves that deal damage that are very beneficial for support Pokemon. So we're going to be giving Regi Dusk options like Foul Play, which means that you don't even need to invest into your pitiful physical attack to deal physical damage, as well as options like Knock Off and Snarl that are 2 of the best utility moves in the game, especially Knock Off, which is arguably just the best offensive move you could ever use. With the pure dark typing, this allows Regi Dusk to avoid any sort of Prankster Taunt Pokemon like Grimmsnarl and Tornadus that could otherwise impede on your success, as being a very good support piece for your team. Now you could definitely argue that Regi Dusk has some competition with options like Sableye and Grimmsnarl, but I feel like these 3 are still fairly unique from each other. Sableye has no concern against Pokemon using Fake Out without even needing to use a Covert Cloak item, making it a very good Pokemon that can just run a lot of other items like Citrus Berry, Resistance Berries, and Mental Herb, while Grimmsnarl can still utilize its fairy typing to gain a lot of added resistances, and it has a much better stat line than Sableye does. And while Regi Dusk has the best stat line of the 3 for this sort of support role, at the very least, these Pokemon both have dual typings, so Regi Dusk having a pure dark typing here is definitely going to set it back a little bit. Though because it's so heavily optimized, I think it'll still stand on its own 2 feet here. Despite all this overlap, I still think it could definitely survive in BGC, but it'll be a bit tight for sure. Now for our ghost type Regi, we're going to be creating a new Pokemon, Regi Spirit. Now Regi Spirit is going to utilize the abilities Wandering Spirit and Cursed Body, which are going to be both great ways to interfere with your opponent. With Wandering Spirit being a great way to get rid of your opponent's ability, and Cursed Body being a great way to harm the moves that your opponent is trying to combat Regi Spirit with. For our stats, we're going to be giving it 200 HP, 100 attack, 80 defense, 50 special attack, 100 special defense, and 50 speed, in an effort to make this into a truly terrifyingly bulky ghost type Pokemon. Now Regi Spirit's going to utilize moves like Trick Room, Poltergeist, Shadow Sneak, Perish Song, and Pain Split, which are going to make this into essentially a very good version of Pokemon like Cofagrigus, which are very irrelevant in VGC right now at the very least, as despite it not even being included in Gen 9, it really hasn't seen use in several different formats now. Now Regi Spirit's going to be able to perform as a Pokemon that can really put opponents quickly on a timer that can't just KO you with one one turn. Thanks to options like Perish Song being a great way to deter opponents from actually staying on the field, with Pain Split also allowing you to take advantage of your 200 HP stat, and when you're at a very low amount, you can just gain back a ton of health very quickly. Regi Spirit can definitely still deal damage with its 100 physical attack and options like Shadow Sneak and Poltergeist, though that's not really what it's meant to do per se. It's just meant to kind of exist in the field and be annoying. And while outside of Cresselia, we really don't see a lot of these bulky ghost type Pokemon thrive as true group setters, I think in Regi Spirit's case, because of its ability set in tandem with Perish Song, this will actually be a very good Pokemon. And while you could argue that maybe it might have needed Shadow Tag to really seal the deal here, I think in a Pokemon this defensively optimized, it'd be a bit too much. Now for our final Regi typing, let's talk about our poison type Regi, Regi Sludge. Now Regi Sludge is going to take a page out of Glamour's book and utilize the abilities Corrosion and Toxic Debris for its very good supporting role here. Regi Sludge, outside of just not being a dual type Pokemon, will still have its fairly own unique traits from Glamoura, starting off with the fact that it's going to be a lot faster than Glamoura will be, as well as it's going to skew more physically offensively. For Regi Sludge's stats, we're going to give it 50 HP, 80 attack, 100 defense, 50 special attack, 100 special defense, and 200 speed, allowing it to be a very fast option to quickly poison opponents and make sure that it can still output physical damage. Now this is going to be fairly unique because a lot of viable poison types are special attackers, but with options like Poison Trap and Stomping Tantrum, this will hit most Pokemon for just really good damage anyway. And with supporting moves like Toxic and Baneful Bunker, this is going to spread poison to most enemies very quickly. Now Regi Sludge still is going to be very powerful because of its ability set in tandem with the move Follow Me, which is going to be the final piece of the puzzle here to really seal the deal. With Follow Me, you could draw in enemies and force them to attack you to set Toxic Debris, as any physical attacker that gets drawn in by this move will actually set Toxic Spikes on their own side of the field. I think this will be the big thing that's going to make Regi Sludge viable while not competing with Glamoura, as well as Glamoura is a lot more offensive than Regi Sludge will be. This alone is just going to be a lot more consistent on stall teams to make sure that you can really just guarantee your Toxic Spikes to get up. I think this is going to make Regi Sludge not only a really good pure poison type Pokemon that can finally stand in VGC, but also a really noteworthy physical attacker, as well as not going to be known for dealing damage. Definitely is going to be the first poison type that will actually deal physical options to most enemies, making it at least fairly unique in that regard. Now, while these are my personal thoughts on what we should be doing for the new Regi forms, let me know down below what types of Regis you guys want to see in the games next. I'd love to see what you guys have for thoughts, as you guys always have such great ideas down below. While you're on the way down there though, make sure to leave a like in the video and subscribe for more, as if you made it this far, I'm sure you enjoyed the content you saw today. And if you want to go the extra mile, consider becoming a member, as for just a couple dollars a month, your support helps pay the editors who put on all the content you guys see today. Our current editors are Dose and Kurt, who really kill it on all the content they do, and their links will be down below. As for members who really go the extra mile here, shout out to Zeke Zero, Josh K Ultra Player, Blood Lily, Aegis Dex, and Stick Out Your Gyat for the Rizzler. Thank you guys very much for your support. It truly does mean the world, and I love seeing you guys support on all the videos. Finally, as an extra reminder, make sure you guys check out Vincenzo Nova, who did the designs for this video as well as the last Regi video we did on the channel. Really couldn't have done it without their work. They did an incredible job on all the designs, and I would love it if you guys could go show them some love. With that said, I'll see you guys in next week's upload. Until then, peace out, guys.